Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I want to talk about 5 specific new construction neighborhoods in the Sarasota, Manatee, greater part of Southwest Florida that have a combination of and/or things around them have changed. The market, the new construction landscape, the infrastructure of the town, etc. that put these back in favor for me. Where over the last 24 months, maybe they fell out of it. It stopped making sense for me at some point. It was hard to explain. And the problem with these changes is they're subtle because you might have already crossed these items off your list. These would be communities that are in phase 3 of 3 phases that are still 3 years to build, but have been building for 4 years already. So they're kind of random and not as sexy as the new stuff that's popping off. Or in combination of just physically things that exist now that didn't. Culinary centers have finished, amenities that are fully formed, things that allow you to see much more of what the neighborhood's going to look like when it's all said and done, which it just economically lets you feel a lot better about sinking your money into something in an area that you're not from without it being as risky. So that's what I want to do today. I hope you enjoy the take. We're going to keep it really casual. I'm just going to give you my literal thoughts on what and why on the 5. My name is Adam Hancock. If we have not met, my team and I can assist you in any way with your real estate needs. Please consider reaching out. Without further ado, let's hop in. All right, no particular order. Number 1 on my list, I want to talk about SKYE Ranch, Sarasota. So the idea with, if you're unfamiliar with this community in general, it's a geography thing like most things are for me, but it's even bigger. So Sarasota, Manatee County is made up of a lot of things, but primarily, especially on the internet, 2 main master plan developments, which take things from an individual new construction neighborhood to a lot of things really close to each other that share communal amenities and have intentional plans. It's not just small stuff. Lakewood Ranch, Florida, 50 plus neighborhoods are going to be in there. And then WELLEN Park is creeping there on their own outright. You know, these have districts, they have downtowns, all this kind of stuff. So what happens, why that's important, is when people come to town, they use these to kind of shop the area, learn about the area. Most of the new construction neighborhoods that you find on the internet that you're excited about sit in these 2 districts on newhomesource.com, but they are in polar opposite sides of the town. So Lakewood Ranch sits northeast of downtown Sarasota, which I'm just using as my anchor, 10 to 21 miles depending on your neighborhood. That's like Master Plan USA, #1 multi-gen Master Plan United States, so large. And then WELLEN Park though sits very far south, like South Venice, North Englewood, Western Northport. So that puts you 50 minutes one way to downtown Sarasota, and they're that far from each other. So a lot of times what people do is they like semblances of both of them, but both of them feel like a stretch. Because if you don't get in the closest part to town, you don't get in the 10 to 12 mile part of Lakewood, then the majority of it's like 15 to 21 miles, which very different commute. And then same with WELLEN Park, it's very coastal, so you got give and takes with both of those. What SKYE Ranch introduced, and still does, is central. Lakewood Ranch is up here, Venice is here, SKYE Ranch is here. It's parallel to Siesta Key by about 10, 11 miles, kind of hugs the interstate there. And then when you got to central Sarasota, you don't have the master plan part. That's the thing, is you do have some new construction. It's not a lot, but you don't have the master plan part. So you have Artistry in Worthington that we're sitting over here. You have Grand Park with NEAL, some MIDR Horton combination communities like Promenade Estates, but 3 or 4 you could totally pick from, but none of them felt like a district. What SKYE did is it went 99% of it's single builder. It's Taylor Morrison. And they have some custom that jumped in there as well, but it's mainly Taylor Morrison. They almost built like their own mini master plan. Multiple different things happening, multiple different sections of it. Various amenities depending on what section you're in, so that you could get the central Sarasota location, you could get maybe the model, the floor plan that you found in other locations, but also still have enough that it's like still exciting from amenity rich and all that atmosphere. That's what it was in a nutshell if you're unfamiliar. Sorry if you were already familiar. So what I want to talk about is the context for this particular video, which is a trending in a great direction kind of idea. A couple things. One is the functionality of amenities. Things are good and well when you see renderings, but when you're sitting in there and all the construction noise, your street's not finished yet, you can't use anything, you're still paying an HOA, it's not near as attractive as when you can come there and you can. You move in today, you have a lot more that is complete that you can use right now than you had at any other given time. And the reason that that's so important is this isn't random stuff. So for instance, this center called the Hub just finished. And what this place has is, and we'll show pictures here, but clubhouse, resort style pool, junior Olympic pool in addition to that, the splash pad, fitness center of course, full locker rooms, movement studio, but it also has a basketball court, rock climbing, and it has a cafe. It has like a quick casual cafe. A lot of neighborhoods do not have any sort of food service. So I like that, but you can use that today, right? So I do think that's a big one. The Hub, it is the one that people talk about time and time again. So I'll leave that there for a second, and there are more amenities in the community beyond that, but I want to transition to kind of a rambling of notes of other things that are interesting under the amenity expansion veil, and then we'll talk about some other key pullouts that are separate than this. So Hub is one. They're also renovating the playground. You know, some of these communities that get a couple of years old, like anything, you know, stuff starts to age weird or whatever. So they're already, I mean, that's a great sign. They're already be renovating the playground. The cafe I mentioned, expanding hours and its menu because of the success they're having. And they always have like if you just want to like run to a coffee shop real quick and work, and like it's not technically co-working or any of that, but it does have much more of that environment than a random spot. They've started to add additional interest groups. So you have camps like tennis and pickleball clinics coming, athletic programs for toddlers. They're adding fitness classes, personal training opportunities, stuff like that. So it's leaning much more to what you would consider almost like a social club without a technical membership other than you live in that neighborhood. Beyond that, so I'll explain a little bit more at the end about like how this is set up, but there's multiple layers of the neighborhood. Taylor Morrison puts things out through brands. So like SKYE Ranch is this area that they created, just like Azario and Lakewood Ranch. Well, then they put out things through like these different lifestyle brands. One here is called Casilla. They have Esplanade. There's a lot of people like, and then they have like, they kind of separate townhomes for the most part. Well, Esplanade has access to like all the amenities, and then, but this is like the neighborhood pool. This is 55 and up without saying it. If you see Rendezvous Park on their website, this is exclusively if you're in the Esplanade section. So they have resort style pool, cabana, bark park, bocce ball, all that kind of stuff, which is nice. They have pickleball in there as well. The main value of that originally was that they could use the hub and all that, but not everyone in the other neighborhoods could use theirs. So it just put less density on the amenities. Well, it's becoming way more exciting because what they were saying at the beginning, they weren't going to add this, but they appear, or not appear to be, they're definitely adding the Bahama Bar, which is a swim up bar with food and drink service to the pool, which this puts you borderline like an actual hotel resort. Absolutely lovely. That's almost like it's not a deal breaker, but it's up there when people buy Taylor Morrison. They're like, that's what everybody wants, is that Bahama Bar, even beyond golf. So wanted to mention that. There are whispers of, because there's a large expansion, which I'm going to talk about in a second, but there are whispers that another large amenity center is going to be added here to satiate the increased population, and then the whole entire community is going to get access to it. And if that happens, that's going to add probably another full layer of all this stuff, pools, fitness centers, etc. But it also, we are hearing rumors, don't hold me to this, everything's a birdie told me, I don't know. Lazy River, that's going to be worked in the pool system there. So I've seen that a bunch in Texas and other areas where it's kind of a cool novelty, but it's just different than a normal pool, but you get all of that if you're in here. So really interesting overall. Okay, so leave that alone for a second. Another really big thing that is available in about 30 days from now that was not available any other time I could talk about this is schools. One of the biggest things I see about people, especially families with younger than high school kids, moving to our area that can't choose Waterside is because of the schools. If you're looking in Waterside, you're shopping Shellstone, especially Windward, any neighborhood of the sorts, you know, the regular neighborhoods, not even like super luxury stuff in the Waterside district of Lakewood Ranch. Schools a lot of times is the deal breaker. That's what pushes, almost like not working pushes a lot of people towards SKYE. Because when Waterside was built, Lakewood Ranch, 100% Manatee County, Waterside gets added. I'm not gonna go crazy here on this video, but it goes to Sarasota County. You could say school choice, fine. It's not a guarantee. So if you're in Sarasota County in Waterside, then you're going to the schools that are already there. You're not going to any schools, at least right now in the current timing, that were built for it. So Tatum Ridge, Booker, and everybody has their own opinion of it. But there's a big difference between schools that were built to be cohesive with a neighborhood versus not. There's a lot less randomness to it. And SKYE Ranch literally has a school called SKYE Ranch School, so it's like straight no chaser situation. Releases in August 2025, so it'll be available for the 25-26 school year. K through 6th grade will be available immediately. 7 and 8th will be added. It will cap it right now. It'll be capped at a K through 8 school, and so state of the art. The latest, it's like only 750, I think, or less right now planned for the school. Unbelievable STEM programs look like they're going to be there. Like that's a big thing they're pushing forward. They have a combo program with Moat Marine Aquarium, so just a lot of really innovative stuff that you can do in a new school when you know everything that's available to you. And I think the big thing on top of all of that is if you said SKYE Ranch, or at least in my personal experience, more people in SKYE Ranch moved from out of state to there than not, then there's something to be said about all of your kids getting a fresh start at the same time. That's a really exciting update. And then lastly, just if you're like, okay, that all sounds really interesting, the cool thing about SKYE is variety. I mean, that's the way to look at it, right? They have Casilla at SKYE Ranch is gonna have a lot more 2 stories than 1. It's gonna be, they're not saying it's family centric, but it's way more family friendly from a floor plan, en suites, lofts, playrooms, stuff like that. Esplanade at Sky Ranch gives you some of the most renowned floor plans that Taylor Morrison offers. It gives you the Palazzo, it gives you the Lazio, the Farnese, it gives you some of the split level villas, gives you the idea that you have adults pool amenities and then you can share in the others. Townhomes give you either investability or affordability that you can't find anywhere else in this area as far as on a single family. And then when all of those amenities come together, you have the hub, you have the Rendezvous Park, you have Turner Park, which is like baseball fields, like sports fields, that kind of, it's like a complex basically that open to the public. They're basically doubling the neighborhood, 1,500 plus homes are being added. So a lot of really interesting stuff going on for Central Sarasota in an area that right now at least not a lot is interesting. All right, number 2 on my list, I want to talk about a community called BEACHWALK at MANASOTA Key. This is DeVosta built, and DeVosta is the amenity-rich brand owned by Pulte Homes. The reason that this one got way better is because mostly infrastructure. This is a community that came out years ago, built 2.5 miles one way from the beach, from MANASOTA Key area. It was just unheard of stuff. Like SEAFLOWER didn't exist. Like it was very hard to build a full neighborhood 2.5 miles from any coast in Florida, let alone Southwest Florida, just because everyone's already done that a million times forever. That's what they've always done. However, the way that you could do that is that you end up in northern Englewood, Florida. And if you look at Sarasota and you say, okay, how did Sarasota originally get popular? John Ringling, how was all this stuff built? It's north in town, north coast. Downtown Sarasota, Lido Key, Siesta Key, the bay in between, Longboat Key, that's like the meat of the area. It's like opposite camera here probably, but it's like up here. Well, then you say, okay, great. Well, the junior version of Sarasota always was an area called Venice. So basically Sarasota County involves like Sarasota city limits, but also as you're driving south, you hit a little town called Osprey. That's where Pineview, the school for the gifted is. And then Nokomis is the town below that. Almost like drive-through towns, at least historically. It's like you're just in them, but you're basically, everybody's going from Sarasota to Venice. Well, Venice was similar kind of thing because it was geography-wise, because it's very coastal. Since everybody was valued this so much, that Venice was always junior Sarasota. It was a little cheaper because you sacrifice location. It was a little slower pace, very, very retirement centric because of like no one's really working down there necessarily. Underrated schools for the most part, but they were newer at the time. And it's just like this quaint, more historic feel of Florida. And it's always been that. That's how people looked at it growing up. And then what's below Venice though is Englewood. If I just describe that whole thing for 3 minutes about how Venice is junior Sarasota and why, then if you're below Venice, then you're like, that's tough, right? Because the only way people ended up out there is if they physically couldn't afford or figure out how to be above. But if they could, they would have. Or if they were just like, there's too many people here, I'm getting out of here. Like you have that, it's not the majority. So to get 2.5 miles, they launched this community like that, but like 3-4 years ago. And so you have all those old stigmas. So people on a map remotely that are sitting in like New Jersey are like, this place looks like freaking paradise. But what no one could do is they could not contextualize taking that chance. It felt like a massive chance. And you know, the thing is they did not sell it at a discount. They didn't sell it like a community that would sit in Englewood typically, because they thought it should be at a premium because of what it was. It was ahead of its time. And that was the problem. Well, fast forward to now, you have all of Welland Park's Playmore District built since that launch. And a lot of Welland Park's district went way further south. So what happened was like you had BEACHWALK down here, and then you have like downtown Venice up here, and like Talon Preserve up here. And you have all this, and this big gap of nothingness. So that drive down, you're like, oh my God, like there's no way I could do this, you know? And that's how everybody reacted that I brought there. And then they build the Playmore District of Welland Park, and you start to get right in here, and you're like, wait a minute, these are exactly the same line, parallel to each other in southernness. The Welland Park District, yes, does have master plan stuff. It does have a downtown right there and all that. But we're talking that this one is 9.5, 10 miles one way from any beaches, because MANASOTA Key's here, Venice Island's up here, and I'm 2.5, and I still get new construction. I don't get communal amenities, but downtown Welland's public. So wouldn't I rather golf cart 2.5 miles to the beach and then drive to downtown Welland? And if you like DeVosta and you like Pulte, then everything that built around it basically allowed people to slowly get their head around this area being okay. They just needed the popularity bias of everything else that happened. They needed the confidence of the developers going there. And you know, I think oftentimes we don't take a step back and say like, the reason I feel about like this is because I did grow up in Sarasota. I do know how people still talk about Englewood and Northport and Western Bradenton. I don't necessarily agree with like the harsh biases of it, but I understand it. And a lot of geography creates that. And a lot of things like that you cannot change. Like they will always be that way in some capacity. There's a reason that people build where they do. But I also talking about BEACHWALK in 2020, and I was exploring the idea of introducing it to people that weren't from the area. And I'm very careful about pushing someone, I'm not pushing someone anywhere, but I'm very careful about making something sound really sexy without you also understanding what the local knows about the town. Because you don't know, I mean, everything looks pretty, you know, if you're sitting in the city in the Northeast. So I took that really seriously. But I was trying to contextualize this thing, and at certain times I couldn't. It didn't make sense. And then they built one of the most popular master plan developments in the entire state of Florida, parallel to it. And so you could step back and say, I don't care if they call this Wellen Park or not. No one cares about that. It's not, no one's proud to be in Wellen. They're trying to get the location of what it is and what's offered there, basically. So I think it'd be worth a really interesting thought exercise to take a look at that. DeValsta offers a really nice home. Like if you look at any of the Taylor Morrison products, NEAL Communities products, any Pulte, obviously regular brand, MI, Madame, it's right in that lane. Full restaurant service at this place, beautiful pool. And to say you're gonna be in a golf cart to any beach ever on new construction moving forward is not gonna be commonplace. Even SEAFLOWER is like 5 miles, it's not 1. So anyway, interesting to me, a little bonus item to do would be maybe, they have a sister community called Talon Preserve, which I also think is coming back into favor. So if everything I said sounds interesting and you're cool with going south of Sarasota, but the idea of how far Englewood gets you from Sarasota, Talon Preserve could be your happy medium. It's not 2.5 miles to the beach, but it's like 7 to 8 miles to a lot of things that are interesting. It's in Nokomis, and Nokomis is in between Venice and Sarasota. So if you have family ties to Sarasota, you work there, something like that, and you could be, you know, 28 minutes, but not 50, then that'd be another one to look at. And once you understand either one of these communities, the other one's easy. It's mainly the same floor plans, very similar pricing, all that kind of thing. So that's my number 2. Number 3 on today's list is a community called WINDWARD, which is built by NEAL Communities. They operate out of NEAL Communities and then NEAL Signature, which is their semi-custom brand. They're all over this area. Canoe Creek, Indigo, Grand Palm, Grand Park, a bunch of stuff. Alcove, on and on and on. They're in the Palmera development down in Wellen Park. You don't see them in a lot of other states, so you might not be familiar, but very coastal aesthetic. Another competitor with David Weekley, Taylor Morrison, Pulte's brands. They're in that space. No age restriction or anything like that. This is located in Southeast Lakewood Ranch. It's in the Waterside district. When Waterside, this is another real big, not only what they're doing now, but timing. When Waterside was first released, it was really exciting because it actually, for the first time, it took a suburb community that was already 20 years in, and they added a district that was closer to town, not further away. Typically that doesn't happen because all you can go is keep going, you know, north. That's what they were doing. But they added a district that puts you like 9.5 to 12 miles one way to downtown Sarasota. So you get like the best part of the suburbs is the idea without a huge sacrifice of the town. That's what you ideally want. Living in town is a sacrifice. You're gonna buy old homes, you're gonna pay huge premium to do so, less space, and you're doing that in an effort to be close to stuff you wanna be close to. If you can get 18 to 22 minutes from the downtown, the reason the downtown is so important because it's 3.5 miles to the beach as well, so you get all of Sarasota, and you get bigger house, it's newer, you get master plan downtowns on top of it, then, I mean, ideally for most people, especially out of state, is the move if you're not going for niche Sarasota. That's what Waterside is. Today, Waterside is like a whole thing, 10 plus neighborhoods. 3 years ago, it was not. It was 3 neighborhoods, and it was one by Pulte called Sapphire Point, one by Homes by Town mainly called Lake House Cove, which had custom builders too, and then one here by NEAL Communities called WINDWARD, and they were peacocks. Sapphire Point was like a premium, it was under 300 homes, really nice piece of land, but it was an expensive version of Pulte for what Pulte's been historically. Lake House Cove was probably the most premium at the time because there was custom builders in there that built like 100 homes, Arthur Ruttenberg, Lee Weatherington, those guys. Homes by Town, if you're not familiar with them, it's like a Toll Brothers level kind of stuff, like with a broad brush. One of the higher end you can do without going fully custom, and they flirt with the semi-custom depending on how busy they are. And then you had WINDWARD, just had a lot of floor plans, like median cost in like the 5, 6s. Really nice amenities, but no restaurant, nothing like that. A lot of different floor plans that you had villas under 300K when it released. You have large single families, like 3,100 square feet that are really, really nice layouts with nice sized pools for, you know, 8 something, 700 something thousand dollars. And these 3 kind of were, most people could figure something out with them. Then things got crazy. You know, COVID hits, like the house that I loved at $750 now costs $1 million, same builder, same fixtures, same features, everything. People are competing with each other, there's no incentives, and so there's a certain line for me. I like everything when it makes sense to the market, but if there's not a pecking order, and I'm not talking about like what you deem as like quality builder or not, I'm talking about how they're positioned to the market. Could you go into one place and divide them from each other? And because of the silo in which builders function, I mean, they're aware of what's going on with each other, kind of, but they're relatively in a silo because of the nature of it. I think they go in and out of losing their way. And it could be one home collection, it could be one size, lot, section, whatever it may be, where they start competing with builders, where I love that they set $150,000 under this builder, but when they start pricing them the same and they start feeling like they're the same, and we saw this with Taylor Morrison, we see this with NEAL's big collection, you start to be against semi-custom medallion and against Toll and Homes by Town, then there's a pretty good opinion and a pretty good feel difference in the two. And so when you get anywhere near then you feel compelled, well, like, oh, I'm even close, I should buy this other one. And that happened a little bit. So, and then there's some power lines and some of the previous negatives of them being so close to town and existing infrastructure, like it gets highlighted even more, it gets brought to the surface because now you're looking for stuff. That all happened. Well, now in 2025, a lot more in Waterside was built. You go from 3 neighborhoods to 10 plus, and a huge variety too, right? You have like semi-custom in there, you have townhome heavy communities with MI, you have David Weekley does an urban brand in there. Wild Blue basically takes what the Lake Club was and adds like a newer version, all custom. Shellstone launches, which is Homes by Town's second effort. So it's mainly Homes by Town and Lee Wetherington's in there. So it would be the new Lake House Cove. You have Monterey, which launches, which is basically an upgrade on what the Isles is now in Lakewood Ranch. So all these things we've seen before added to this section, which gives you a lot more people to pick from. Now you have really close to custom, you have a lot of custom, all new, you can buy them all, they don't cost the same, but the timing's the same. So people used to make choices in 2020 because in somewhat it was a little bit more clarity because there wasn't as many options. So if you looked at Windward, you're probably shopping Esplanade Azario, maybe Sapphire Point, and then you're like, I either got to pick Waterside or not. But now with all these options, like for a buyer, it's more abundant. And in the world today, Windward's back to me because what they did in Waterside is they released a bunch of peacocks. And you look at like, okay, if I have, let's say you have $700,000 to $850,000, and you say, what can I do? The options get very limited. You know, the Alcove is 46 total homes, semi-custom. The Avanti was a very, very small, no frills Pulte brand. The David Weekley brand of Emerald Landing, it's like what they did in Payne Park kind of. They're long and lean, it's got to be for you or it's not. Nautique with MI as more townhomes than single families. Wild Blue starts at like 1.8 million now. Stock development and custom friends. Monterey, I really like Monterey. It's a premium versus Windward because it's Toll Brothers, and it does get you a little, it scoots you a little bit to the side, so people are having trouble with their location. Shellstone, to do the size house you could do at Windward in that same collection, kind of, it's going to be, with a pool, it'd be like 1.3 to 1.5 million, getting potentially under a million, let alone like the smaller floor plans, you know. So it's more, it sits more on that premium side, but Windward still exists. And so they're offering incentives that I have not seen in a long time. They've expanded. So they had 60 homes left in their phase 2 collection. Well, they're adding phase 3 with 300 additional homes. So now you have 3.5 years to play with it. One of the biggest things is geography. Like they can build all they want, but the idea that they're going to build closer to what already exists is random opportunities, but not in a master plan way. So Windward's 9.5 miles one way to downtown Sarasota. At one point in time, it was the closest community of all of Lakewood Ranch to downtown Sarasota. And that's not nothing. I mean, the difference between a 22, 23 minutes, because these are all city roads, versus 45, 50, is the difference between you going to the beach 2-3 times a week or not. It's a big deal to me. All of Waterside is also the sexy amenity district. So if you get inside the Waterside district, then you have Waterside Place, which is like a proper downtown, has the #1 farmers market in the state of Florida, 25-foot wide sidewalks. It's lovely. Like great date night spot, kids, safe, it's insulated. But downtown Lakewood Ranch already existed, also lower in town. Center Point just got built. They brought Owen's Fish Camp, which is one of the most popular seafood restaurants in downtown Sarasota's out there. Stone's throw from you. University Town Center's stone's throw from you. So most of Lakewood Ranch, what is interesting, was already lower. You could argue you get the best of all of that, one of the most affordable prices, and then you get the town. So that's something with, no matter how cool the future neighborhoods are, for the most part, they're gonna go east and east of any of the areas that currently exist. So I like that. I would pitch this one as one of your last opportunities to get like a 28 to 3,000 square foot house on a single story, really nice laid out on a good sized lot with a pool for under that 1 million mark. It's that's becoming a lost art. There's golf cart ability in here, which is also nice. That's very rare in Florida, and some walkability as well. And then just as far as updates go, a couple things to be cognizant of. That phase 3 that they're releasing, they're gonna offer all their home collections they have now. So there's 3 single family collections and a villa. 33 foot wide, 40 foot wide, and 60 foot wide homes on that collection. One thing to be cognizant of is all the phases, 360 homes left that still can be built. There's only 25 in the 60 foot collection. The 60 foot one is the one with the Kiowa Savannah 2. And if you go from 60 to 40, then a lot of what I just said could have ruined it for you. So that would be, if timing, I don't really talk about like go rush and do anything, but if timing was important to you, like that could matter a lot, because once that's gone, and you're only in the resale market. And NEAL has been more open to negotiation than I have seen ever since I've dealt with them. So food for thought. Okay, 2 more for you. Number 4 on the list is really a development called SEAFLOWER. The idea here is this made Western Bradenton better as a section of town. And it really opened the concept of what you could do in areas that people see the landscape, the geography, really, really attractive in its own outright. But as far as like historically what it's been to the town, the ability to like build neighborhoods there that make sense, to make people feel better from coming out of state to spend money in these areas that they don't understand. It really opens up the idea of what you could do by carving out a big enough piece of land to insulate it from any previous negatives that existed, if that makes sense. And this would be like, I mean, southern Palmetto, the coastal part near the river, you know, parts of like that Progress Village, Riverview, like that hug the bay of Tampa Bay is another one. It's a cool concept. But what SEAFLOWER basically did is there's a defunct flower farm that is north of downtown Sarasota, like a handful of miles. So very, very coastal, but it doesn't hug like Lido, Siesta Key area as much. The top half of Longboat Key, and it's the really northwestern beaches in the Sarasota area. Anna Maria Island, Coquina, Holmes Beach, this kind of stuff. And they're lovely beaches. But mainland Bradenton does not look anything like downtown Sarasota. So though it bumps the beaches when you go north, is very different than the land that bumps the beaches when you go south. And you know, it's much more eclectic, has a long, cool history, but if you're into the suburbs, then it's choppy. You know, it's house to house, it's street to street, but it's not a mature version of it. It's not like Hyde Park or like other urban areas where you have whole sections that are like pretty similar to each other as far as like renovation and timeline and stuff like that. This was completely random. And then you have like a couple nice neighborhoods like Aqua thrown in between. You have IMG Academy, which is a really, really high-end specialty school thrown up there. But the rest is, when you come to town and you go to Lakewood Ranch or something, you go over there, you're like, yeah, you don't know how to get your head around it, you know? Well, SEAFLOWER introduced not a single neighborhood, like, because that hasn't really worked well. Like, because people are still like, how am I gonna spend $1 million here if this is across the street? You know, it's just tough for all the reasons. So they'd rather just live 10 miles one way from the coast if they have to. This is a whole thing. Defunct flower farm. They come in here, so they have a big piece of land that previously was being used for a different purpose, and so they can do mixed use stuff. So you got 5 different builders, Cardell Homes, David Weekley, ESA, Pulte, MI, all kind of doing different things that align with the neighborhood. So you can kind of like, this is my criteria, this is my price point, my house size, what I'm ideally looking for, and pick your poison. You can go all the way up to custom to really affordable. It is extremely coastal. So other than BEACHWALK, this is the belle of the ball when it comes to coastal proximity, and then street access to it. Now, all coast is not equal, all beaches might not be your preference. So you gotta like these. These are really nice. But there's also many ways to get there. So you can shoot to downtown Sarasota, you can take back roads the whole way there, you can cut over through Cortez and enjoy all that and get out to Bradenton Beach. You have the bay in between, really, really nice overall. Ton of commercial space is coming with it. So that's the whole key here, is that it's not a single neighborhood, it's a concept. 200,000 plus square feet of commercial space is gonna be in here. So you're gonna have grocery stores, you're gonna have restaurants, like all the kind of stuff that you can see what they're doing in WELLEN Park, where they're building these shopping centers from scratch. Also, there's like a town square area, so all these neighborhoods come together and kind of enjoy the space, where there'd probably be farmers markets, like walking little villages, stuff like that as well. It has nice normal amenities to share on top of that. But the idea is that SEAFLOWER, I think, unlocks a location that everyone on a map loves, but because of the infrastructure of housing and the history of that, most people from out of state, I mean 95+% of people from out of state that I've worked with personally, felt like it would be more turnkey, easier, less risky to go with one of the suburbs that is a guarantee like a Lakewood Ranch, even if they sacrifice 25 minutes to the water that they're trying to be close to. All right, my 5th and final one for this particular video is a community called SOLSTICE by Toll Brothers. And all I want to say about this is, one, when it comes to WELLEN Park and Venice in general, they haven't gone hyper luxury. They've been sensitive to custom homes, sensitive to like $1.5+ million price points if you're not straight on the water, because that town's never really been that. So when WELLEN Park was released, they were really careful about that. You did not see a lot of that. People barely crept into that zone. Like Sam Rogers has a custom neighborhood there, and now you have Everly and you have parts of Palmyra, but none of that existed. When SOLSTICE was released, it was when you could not see the Playmore District. They sold it from other communities, and you had 2 NEAL communities. They were pretty boutique in their own outright. You had a Mattamy community called Sunstone, and a couple Lennar things floating around. So what SOLSTICE gave you is it gave you a Toll Brothers product that it wasn't custom, but it got you higher end, and it was a more affordable version of Toll. So it gave you just like, maybe that was up here, maybe Avelina was here with NEAL, and so it gave you a pecking order of builders that you could actually choose from. But it's very, very specific. Some people couldn't even buy because they still couldn't figure it out, because even more of a peacock than maybe the water side is today. But that was the value of SOLSTICE. It was scared to do what they did in the Isles, so you didn't see like 1.5 million really, but affordable version of Toll, but yeah, they're really nice floor plans. The Flora, you know, some of the smaller stuff that competes with other areas that are similar without going custom. That was that. Like anything, right? Like kind of Cascades, they had real big problems with their timeline of building. So stuff that you got excited about, 18 months later, you're like, all right, what are we doing here? But now in 2025, we have downtown Wellen built. We have the full Playmore district, Cool Today Park. You can walk to stuff. It's lovely. You know, there's more communities that were added that still make Solstice kind of make sense. And what they've done with Solstice is the incentives are crazy. I mean, the discounts in that place right now are, I think, are pretty insane. You want to do a quick move in, the way they're discounting those, it kind of gives you this how can I lose situation. It's still Toll Brothers, it's still in the walkable district, and even if you haven't heard the name Solstice in a long time, then there's something to be said for getting something at $680 that 6 months ago legitimately cost $850. So if you just want to even ride that wave to figure out what happens after, then I like that. And you can move in quicker, so you take that money, start the appreciation figured out. They've also released the new version of it. It's called Oak Bend. So Oak Bend actually gets maybe the closest neighborhood to all of downtown Wellen. So you're gonna have two Toll Brothers offerings that are next to each other. This is just newer. Pretty normal amenities and stuff. Right now it looks like just 5 floor plans. So if you wanted to juxtapose those two and then take those and look at Monterey and the Isles and Lakewood Ranch and see the difference between Toll Brothers in Venice versus Toll Brothers in Lakewood, that's a great way to learn about stuff in general. That would be my 5th and final. All right, folks, that's a wrap for today's edition of the Florida Relocation Guide. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and you're not already subscribed to this channel here, please consider doing so. We have a ton of great content planned for the balance of the year, covering everything we could possibly think of to assist you with a possible real estate decision in the future. Subscribing is just the best way to see what is coming next, even if you're not watching in order episodically. Beyond that, like I mentioned at the beginning, I own a full-scale residential real estate brokerage in Southwest Florida. We mainly spend our time in the Sarasota greater area, Tampa Bay greater, and the Naples-Fort Myers greater areas, and then, you know, kind of cascade from there. If any of what we're doing here is relevant to you, you like the information first kind of approach, and you're potentially considering relocating from out of state or out of country, and then especially if you're combining with that maybe new construction, it's not mutually exclusive to any of those, but that is like kind of our sweet spot as far as like the density of information and of examples we have. If that sounds interesting to you, you even want to have a conversation, please consider reaching out. You can call, text, email, etc. And then finally, my main hub is the sunshinestateco.com. A bunch of like cool autonomous resources you can mess with there. Audio versions of the videos, and that's in the description box for the videos. So if you click that, you can actually subscribe to that podcast. It's on like iTunes, Spotify, all that kind of stuff. But it's just basically a conduit for me to go audio only versions. But you can subscribe to that. So if you prefer that, you're in the car, you don't want to have YouTube Premium where you have to watch in the background. Just the ease of audio in a platform that's made for just audio is much cleaner. So you can mess with that. We have written word versions of all the videos on the website in the form of what's just called blogs on the website, relocation guides where you can download, you can do flipbook. We send mostly one email every month that's an aggregation of like, you know, real, like just bite-sized information. It's a manifesto, everything we could possibly get to you about new construction incentives, new releases, like anything along those lines. And then recently we've been flirting with just doing a mid-month and then an aggregated end of the month one. So at the most it'll be 2 emails, but no spam beyond that. No like random lifestyle releases or anything like that. It's just, again, an information first approach. So consider signing up for that email list. If you can't find any of these items, you can always email us and ask for any of them. You can ask for previous versions of them or anything like that as well. Again, my name is Adam Hancock. Thank you guys so much for consuming my content. We'll see you on the next one.